Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick, and this is Super Simple Security Principles, where we talk about digital security principles that are easy to understand no matter your skill level. We are part of the I Hate Passwords Digital Self Defense Academy, or IHP Academy for short.
We're back. We're back, and not only are we back, we are talking about now our episode title will give it away a little, but this is part two, keeping the hackers out. Now, you added a little bit to that, keeping the hackers out, part two, and you put these little letters, and they scared me. TOTP. Not gonna lie, that scares me. It sounded a little bit complicated. So to keep it simple, we have our master guardian here today, Makani. Woo!
Thanks for that intro. I we'll keep the TOTP out of the visible title and wait till they get in here so we can make sure to reassure them not be too scared.
We won't scare them
'Cause
off right at the get-go with the title.
that's right, exactly. But you are right. This is going to be a little bit more of a technical episode than some of ours. So I'm definitely going to be counting on you to, catch me, keep me honest, and make sure I'm keeping it simple. If you have even the smallest bit of confusion, you know that some of our listeners will as well, and I want you to stop me. And even if like I had this grand explanation prepared, and you're like, dude, I'm not getting it, then stop me, and we'll try it again. Okay?
Sounds great. Okay, we're in this together, listeners. Here we go. Hopefully I ask all the right questions.
That's right. A lot of pressure for you.
Right?
So to start off with, I want to just this is I want to do a quick recap of two-factor authentication, just super quick.
Yeah.
So back in episode 3, which was 24 episodes again already
That's
ago.
crazy.
It's crazy, pretty awesome, crazy awesome, really. But it's been a long time. So 2FA, or okay, so that's the other thing is I'm not going to call it two-factor authentication this whole episode. We're going to
Right, it's
abbreviate that
2FA. We got to that point in episode 3,
2FA.
so we're good.
Exactly. So bringing that back here, 2FA is an extra layer of protection to keep your account safe in case your password gets stolen, like belt and suspenders. That's and if you want more of a refresher than that, you can always go back and listen to episode 3, but just to kind of bring it back real quick. Now, in that episode, we promised that we were going to follow it up by talking about some specific types of 2FA. And that's what brings us to today's episode, 24 later, making good on that promise.
Yes.
And yeah, and that's going to happen a lot because we have a lot of series, a lot of things that we want to talk about, and we're going to spread them out. So I don't feel bad about that, but it is fun to kind of finally be getting back to one of our earliest episodes. So, and as Nick mentioned, the acronym we've got the 2FA acronym that we mastered last time. So we're going to mix in a new acronym today, TOTP. But
Yay.
yeah, I know you're really excited about learning new computer geek acronyms. But the words from this one are even simpler, okay? Time-based one-time passwords. No scary words in there, right?
Nope, not too bad.
Okay. Right, they're words we know well, but we're going to break down exactly what they mean in this context and how they tie together.
Okay.
So for me, it's a particular type of 2FA, and for me, it's
Okay.
my most commonly used type. It's not the absolute strongest form of 2FA, and it's not the weakest. It has kind of a range and a balance of strength and convenience depending on exactly how you use it, because there's some minor variations you can use. And I think of it kind of as the sweet spot of 2FA for many cases.
All right.
So that's the setup.
That's the setup. when are we going to use it? That's my question. Two-factor authentication, or am I jumping too far ahead?
No, and that is a good question, and we can jump ahead there for a minute because really it comes back to our last episode in this series a month ago where we talked about our important accounts. And so this is a good candidate for 2FA um, to use with those.
Okay. Okay, so
Be,
going back to that, we identified our important accounts.
exactly.
And so we're taking TOTP, or time-based one-time password. Did I get that?
Yep.
Yes. And we're going to use that like two-factor authentication with our important accounts.
Yeah. Well,
Got it.
and here's the other thing on it. There is, like I said, there's a stronger form, but the stronger form costs some money. And so that's why we're starting with this one, because this is a free one that anybody can use, very convenient, and it adds a really good layer of protection. And I use it actually with a lot of accounts. I do use the stronger form that costs money with, for example, my email account. But even if you start with this and then later, once we talk about that, you're like, okay, I want to upgrade even just a smaller set of important accounts like email to the paid one, then that's fine. Because you don't have to pay for each account. But anyway, we'll talk about that more. So let's get into what this is and how you use it. So
Okay.
the first part is we're going to break down each of these words. So we got the one-time password.
Right.
And the one time just means that that password can only be used once, unlike most of our passwords, which we enter in every time. And you've gotten these, everyone has gotten lots of these. They're usually a 5 or 6 digit code that gets sent to your email or your phone that you have to type in. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And the idea with it being one time is that it makes stealing it pointless. So you don't have to worry about keeping it a secret.
Right.
And nearly all 2FA, all the different types of 2FA, use one time passwords in one form or another. It's mostly a difference of how you get the code.
Okay.
Okay, which leads us to the second part of it, or rather the first part of it, time based. Okay, so in the
Okay.
case of email and phone, they send the code to you.
Right.
So,
Right.
they,
You get a
whereas with,
text or you get an email with the code on it.
exactly. And with this one, instead of sending it to you, it gets generated in an app based on the current time of day.
Okay.
Okay, so you install an app on your phone, usually. You could be on your computer as well. It's often called an authenticator. And its whole purpose is just to generate these time based one time passwords for you. And so here's how that looks. Let's say you want to start using TOTP. We're going to repeat that a few times, try to get that less scary, to protect your Facebook account. So you go online, you log into your Facebook account, you go to your security settings to start that process and indicate you want to set this up.
Right.
There's going to be, most of the time anyway, there's variations, but we'll focus on the most common case, which is it will present a QR code for you that you take your phone and your TOTP app and you scan that QR code, and then it adds your Facebook 2FA to that app so that it can generate passwords for you that now are unique to your individual Facebook account. They will be separate from anyone else's Facebook account. They will also be separate from any other of your online accounts. With me so far?
I'm with you. I'm right there.
Okay. Okay.
I
So
think I had
one,
one of these once, to be honest. But the
yeah.
old school version, instead of like that cool way to scan it with the QR code that you talked about on your phone, had
Uh-huh.
this little key fob that was given to me and it would
Oh,
come up.
yeah. Right. There are physical key fobs as well, and that's actually in a lot of ways a stronger, more complete form of 2FA than even just the app on your phone. But usually
Okay.
those aren't free, right?
Right. But the
And
premise is the same. It's
100%. Yep.
okay.
It just
Perfect.
adds some other pieces that are pretty awesome that we'll talk about later. Um,
Killer. Yes.
so in the app though, once you get that set up, then is kind of the fun part because you'll see your different passwords in there and they'll be counting down because every 30 seconds that password changes. It's almost like, your nuclear launch codes with the two keys that turn or the codes that change
Right.
every day
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? It's so I don't know, at least for me, you look at it, it's like, oh, I'm kind of a super spy, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? So anyway, so the next thing to talk about is what are the advantages of this over the more common forms of 2FA that people are familiar with, namely email and phone that we've talked about, right?
Right.
And so the first one, this is one of the biggest reasons that many people love TOTP, is simply that you don't have to give out your phone number. It's just nice to be able to keep that as private as you can. One less website you had to give your phone number to.
Right.
I know for you that's going to be high on your list probably of
Absolutely. You
reasons.
nailed it. You nailed it. Hey, giving out my phone number. Yep.
Yeah. And then one probably my favorite benefit, even though I totally appreciate that as well, but is it's just faster. I never have to wait for the text message or email to arrive. Usually they come in pretty speedy, but sometimes they have some glitches or whatever and it's a little bit delayed. And I can even have my password manager automatically enter this TOTP code for me if I want to. And in some cases, I do.
Nice.
So then the next one is kind of so there's a privacy benefit, there's a speed benefit, there is also some security benefits. And one of them is that, as we talked about, the passwords are generated rather than transmitted. And you can kind of imagine, but it means that not only is there's this cool super spyness, but there is some stronger security because not sending the codes, especially over email and phone, which aren't particularly secure transmission methods, as we've talked about a lot,
Right.
um, it's a safer approach for a variety of little reasons that are very technical. So we're not going to dive into that. I'll just say it's better, but it's still not foolproof.
Okay.
The next benefit is, again, related to your phone number because your phone number can change and you don't get locked out of your account. And I know for many people this will never be an issue. You may think it will never happen, and it might not. But like we talked about in episode 3, I think anyway, it did happen unexpectedly to a friend of mine. And I haven't talked to him in a while about this, but I know he was dealing with it for several months at least, trying to get all of his things converted over. So it was a huge hassle for him. So I still see that as a pretty good benefit, even if it's more of one of convenience than security in that particular aspect.
Right. Not if somebody were to lose their phone, could that be a potential problem then?
Yeah, it is. Well, and that's actually ties
Because
into my next one, right? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, that happened to a friend of mine is he lost his phone, had to get a new phone number, but yet had nothing to go off of.
Yeah. Well, and even if you lose your phone and then you're able to keep the same phone number, right? Because most of the time you can.
Yeah.
Um, for that time that your phone's gone or it's broken or whatever, then that can be a huge pain, right? Even just
Right.
temporarily. Yeah.
Right.
So that's a good point.
Well, and I think that's what his was, is more on a temporary basis. Maybe he didn't get a new number, but yeah,
Right.
it was
Either
still an
way.
inconvenience.
Yeah. Exactly. And part of the reason for that is with TOTP compared to, phone-based, you have total control over the location because the password gets generated in the app. So it's just a question of where you install that app. You can install it on your phone, you can install it on your computer, you can even, like we talked about, on a separate physical key. And I like the convenience and flexibility on that. And in fact, it gives you the ability to have redundancy. You can have it stored in multiple of those places. So if anything happens to any of the devices, you aren't locked out, even temporarily.
Yeah. And keep in mind, these are your important accounts, so you're not going to want to get locked out of these accounts.
Yes, that is actually a really good point, right? It's not just some minor one, right? These are
Right.
ones you aren't going to want to be temporarily locked out even ever. Yeah, that's a really,
Ever.
really good point. Yeah, ever. Exactly. Okay, so that's the I think that's all of the advantages that I could think of. At least
Okay.
yeah. So now I want to talk about one thing that it doesn't do.
Okay.
Because so we've talked about the stronger form, the hardware key, we've kind of
Right.
referenced a little bit. And the big difference between it is that it lacks strong phishing protection. And we talked about this very recently in episode 24. And so I'll just add briefly onto there. And basically, in there, we talked about how phishing is about tricking you into entering your password onto a fake website, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And here, yes, we have this extra code, but it's nearly as easy to trick you into also entering your TOTP code as it is to just trick you into entering your password, which is why this method of using 2FA doesn't by itself convey really any additional phishing, or not additional, but doesn't convey any phishing protection. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes
Right.
sense. Whereas we know with a password manager, it does because it takes us directly to the correct website.
Right. Well, so
Better.
that's kind of independent of 2FA, right? That's one of the things we
Right.
love about password managers is they won't automatically fill in your password on the wrong website.
Right.
And so even if you're not using any 2FA with your password manager or in general, using a password manager is one of the ways that gives you one layer of protection against phishing. And so that's a good call out actually, because that's something that they can do now and without any additional cost, at least assuming you've gotten to the password manager point.
Right.
So, I guess the last thing I'd want to say is, we've talked about a lot of the details of TOTP. And the main thing I want to remind our listeners is the importance of using 2FA. It's something that all of you should be doing to keep your most important account safe. You start with a strong, unique password, and then add two-factor authentication. That's step 2, and either the TOTP, like we've talked about today, or any other type. Now, before we get to our call to action, Nick, you have any questions or things you want to remind our listeners of?
I do. This one stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Here's why. I worked as a financial advisor and I placed trades. Trades placed, sold stocks, bonds, etc. Every single brokerage firm I ever worked for always was super, super good to get me a key fob. I never had to purchase my own key fob, this TOTP, and it added a huge extra layer of security. But I remember, they kind of told me it was only as good as the security I put in place. And so, look, people are aware that you have important accounts, and brokerages are willing to hand out key fobs to every employee to keep those accounts safe. So this tells me that we should identify at least those important accounts and add that second factor. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree completely. It's a good example, and it's good. I'm glad they do that. That's awesome. So we've talked a lot about the list of important accounts, and last month in episode 23, the call to action for that one was making that list of important accounts. And super quick recap there. That starts with your email, includes big tech accounts like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, includes your money accounts like bank accounts and credit cards. So the call today is to take that list, review them, and decide if you want to add this kind of 2FA to any of your accounts. And I'll just close with this, that when you're ready to start using TOTP, obviously you'll need an app like we talked about. And if you have a password manager, it can probably do it. Certainly if you're using 1Password like we recommend, it can absolutely do it. Or you can use a standalone app. And in episode 31, which is the next continuation of this series next month, we'll be talking in detail about the standalone TOTP app that I use. But if you want to get started now, I'm going to include the link for it in the show notes. And there you go.
Excellent. Sounds fantastic. In fact, I even use one of these. I added one of these to my accounts that my important accounts. I started specifically with email, and it was not that bad. And I am not a techie. Remember that, guys. I'm not a techie. So getting this app and getting started is super easy. We're looking forward to having you with our next episodes and talking about it. So
cool. You
there you have
surprised
it.
me with that one. I didn't know you had already gotten ahead of that. So that's
Yeah.
awesome to hear. Nice work,
Yep.
dude. Very nice.
Thank Kim.
Yeah. Well, hey, whatever it takes to get us going, you still did it. So that's awesome.
Right. So
Okay. Well, look forward to continuing this next month.
Sounds great. Me too.
Okay, that's our super simple show today. If you're not a member of the IHP Academy already, please come join us for free. Stop searching the whole internet for answers and never knowing who to trust. Ask us instead. We made it super simple to find us, and it only takes 2 minutes to sign up. Just visit helpmegetsafe.com. Enter your name and your email. You're in. You can also find the link in our show notes. Thank you for joining us, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.